You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Well, a quite wintry, cold and icy hello to all the listeners to this week's Haunted History show on Parasearch Radio. You should all know who I am by now, but if you don't, I'm Penny G. Morgan and I'm your hostess with the mostess for the next 60 minutes or so. I hope you've all stayed safe in this cold snap that we've just had in the UK. It's rare that I have to dig out the thermals that I tend to use for doing nighttime investigations for actual normal day wear, just to do the school run in and not to freeze in the process. But let's just say I'm quite glad I owned them. Hi Kerry, I hope you're well. Last week I was joined by Richard Eastep and Asylum 49 owner Cammy Anderson. Hi Richard. If you haven't had chance to tune in to that show, the one we did last week on Asylum 49, please do go and have a listen, as it was a really interesting one to record, and it's very rare to get the actual owner of an establishment on air, let alone one like Cammy, who knows the activity and vibe of the building as well as she does. So it's very enlightening to be able to hear from her. As always, Spreaker and YouTube have all of the shows stored there, and any other Parasearch shows that you feel like checking out. There's a very good range of subjects to keep you interested across the station. So, in the run up to Christmas, I guess investigation season has started to wind down a little bit. And next week will be our last Haunted History show until we return on the 3rd of January with a Haunted Histories Revisited special, where myself and two of my fellow presenters will be discussing some of our favourite episodes. Well, I like most of my episodes, I choose them after all, but they're going to talk about a couple of the ones that they've really enjoyed listening to. So if that doesn't whet your appetite to go and have a listen to them all over again, I don't know what will. But if there is one in particular you have really, really liked as a listener, make sure to let me know and we'll try and feature it for you. But we're still hard at haunting and history this week, and as such have come back to good old Blighty, and we'll be talking shortly to Jessica of Dusk Till Dawn Events about the Four Crosses Coaching Inn in Cannock, Staffordshire. As with many old buildings, I think nearly all old buildings, the Four Crosses has quite a paranormal past associated with it, which we will be talking with Jessica about quite shortly. But the inn was actually built in the mid-1600s using timbers from ships believed to now be around 1,000 years old. So the energies in the building may well be attributed as much to the building materials as the events which have occurred there. There's also meant to be several secret passageways which have been discovered in this 400-year-old building, and there is believed to be quite a lot more still there. But what will we cover? What shall we cover from a historical perspective? That's the question, isn't it? Well, I looked at all the different things. I looked at the coaching in histories. I looked at highwaymen, all that kind of thing. And then I thought, well, let's have a look at a bit of 1700s gossip. And, well, the sort of thing that the gutter press would probably revel in even now. We're going to look at an event which happened in 1770 and would probably have been a feature in the Sun or the Star with a headline like Henry has his lady or something equally scandalous. Yes, affairs and kiss and tells are nothing new. Just the way they're actually treated in the courts probably is. It's possibly not surprising that a coaching inn like the Four Crosses was involved in one of these cases. But the story, I think, is quite interesting, and it shows how different adultery, that's what it comes down to, was actually treated 200 years ago. Now, I'm going to digress slightly, but there is method in my madness. Did anyone ever watch the TV film? It was on a couple of years ago, and it starred Natalie Dormer and Sean Evans. It was called The Scandalous Lady W. Well, it was based on the story of Lady Seymour Worsley. Well, if you remember that film, and it was very, very good, you can probably recall how the woman, in the case of adultery, was actually treated. The man who had, well, been sleeping with her, for want of a better, I can't think of another way of putting it, to be quite honest, by the husband would be, the man who was sleeping with the wife would be sued by the husband for damages. Hi Chris, wondered where you've been. In what was known as criminal conversation. Now, do I need to tell you what the conversation bit was actually meant to mean? We're talking about adultery here, which was actually a criminal offence, so, work it out. Well, in Lady Worsley's case, Lord Worsley wanted to sue for £20,000, which is over $2 million in today's money. I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but Lord Worsley was, let's just say, not the most conventionally loving of husbands. He had some sexual proclivities that, the end result was he was awarded just 1 shilling in damages, which is nearer to a fiver if it was today. So he went from wanting over 2 million to getting a fiver. But this was not the only case of criminal conversation that took place in the 1700s. In 1770, a very high-profile case was to take place concerning the younger brother of King George III and the then wife of a Lord Grosvenor. Well, the inn, this is the Four Crosses we're talking about, excuse me, yeah, it's not only is it cold season as in it's going cold, it's cold season as in, I've just got one constant cold at the moment, so I do apologise. Anyway, the inn, which was then owned by a Lord Hatherton's father, Morton Walhouse, was sometimes a sleeping place as well as these inns tended to be. Lord Hatherton recorded in his journal that the Duke of Cumberland and Lady Grosvenor took their quarters there for the first night in their flight from Eton. The Hatherton family owned the property until the 1950s, and it was managed by members of the Lovett family until the death of Miss Lovett in 1940 at the age of 91. She was reputed to have been the oldest ever licensee. Anyway, back to the scandal. We all love a bit of scandal, don't we? So we have the Duke of Cumberland, Prince Henry, brother of the then King George III, and the 24-year-old wife of Lord Grosvenor, a Henrietta, as she was known, Vernon, also obviously known as Lady Grosvenor. When the affair was discovered, various landlords were called as witnesses to court, with many testifying to the Duke having been in disguise and meeting Henrietta at various places and staying in various different inns near to Eaton Hall in Cheshire, where the Lord had taken his wife. Henry always travelled with 2 servants, the trio calling each other John, Farmer Tush, and the Squire. Now, we don't know if the landlord of the Four Crosses was called as a witness, but Lord Hatherton's diary definitely... Hi, Shaky. Here's one to you too, Jess. So you just made me lose my thread then completely. But hi, Shaky, yeah. Anyway, it's an in-joke. I'll explain it to you all later, maybe, or maybe not. But we do not know if the landlord of the Four Crosses was called as a witness in this particular case. But Lord Hatherton's diary definitely points to the Duke and Lady Grosvenor having utilised the hospitality there when they were pretending to live as man and wife during her escape from Eton. The press, oddly enough, actually treated the lady quite kindly during the whole court process, painting her as more of a heroine rather than a harlot. Although, however, it can be said upon reading the account that Henrietta was used by all the men in her life, as once their secret was unveiled, Prince Henry seemed to tire of her and left her living a cash-strapped lifestyle in lodgings. Whether she expected that once the divorce proceedings were finalised that she would be clad in ermine robes and living the life of a duchess in the grandeur of Cumberland and as a sister-in-law to the then king, she was to be sorely disappointed, as shortly after the court case and damages of £10,000, around £1.5 million in today's money, was awarded to her husband, Prince Henry started parading a new woman around town and then proceeded to rub salt in the wound and marry a commoner, Anne Horton, in 1771. Doing this, he incurred the wrath of his actual brother, George III, the King, and caused the passing of an act called the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, which, in a nutshell, forbade the marriage of anyone who was a descendant of George II to wed without the permission of the then monarch. And it's actually only relatively recently that that act was got rid of, shall we say. Anyway, back to Henrietta. She soon realised that marriage to Prince Henry was not going to happen, and that divorce would leave her quite destitute and unable to marry anyone else. So she decided to fight back. Good girl. She countersued her husband, claiming that he too was guilty of adultery, because it was well known that Grosvenor himself had a habit of extramarital relations, seeking out prostitutes around Leicester Square. Sometimes the most, well, down-at-heel prostitutes as well. He wasn't a high-end call girl type of man. Oh, no, no. And so the divorce proceedings were halted, and an annual allowance of, in today's money, £150,000 a year was awarded to his wife, and nothing but a separation was settled upon, which left her in a much better place. But good for her fighting him back on that one. But Henrietta, this woman's amazing. She lived a life as part of a more hedonistic lifestyle of London. Hi, Kaz. And remarried in September 1802, a mere month after the death of her estranged husband. In fact, 12 years after the death of the man who had caused her to become a cause célèbre, however it's pronounced, or cause célèbre, in English society. I guess she had the last laugh. Similar to the case that followed 10 years after hers of Lady Seymour Worsley, and her similarly but not quite so holy husband. In fact, the two ladies probably ran into each other, as both were members of the New Female Coterie, a group for women who were what was known as, there's so much French in this, demi-mondaine, and lived a hedonistic, but also sharp businessman and social skills type life. Now that's a conversation you would love to listen into, isn't it? What they would have talked about, that these two men. Do you know what, though? In all honesty, I actually admire both of these women for standing up for themselves and making the best of a pretty bad situation. Both were very young brides to older men, probably not suitable older men either, and had to deal with what society threw at them. Not to mention deal with husbands who didn't really love them, were pretty bad matches, and had less than the, shall we say, normal attitude towards marital relations. One only getting his kicks by having his wife sleep with other men so he could watch, and the other one going to visit, well, prostitutes in some of the most destitute parts of London. Well, the Four Crosses, as with most coaching inns, held out until the advent of the railways in the mid-1800s. Maybe that's when the more ethereal spirits, as opposed to the alcoholic spirits, started to make themselves heard. Shall we find out from Jessica what she's experienced? Let's see if we can segue seamlessly into this interview. And we're now joined by the lovely Jessica of Dusk Till Dawn events. Hi Jess, how are you?
Hi Penny, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Thanks ever so much for joining us to talk about the Four Crosses. I'm quite looking forward to hearing about this because I've never done a show on a pub, for want of a better term. So it'd be quite interesting to hear about this one. And I'm hoping to come and investigate it with you guys next year at some point. So
that would be great.
I can make a double whammy, hopefully go and visit my friends who live in Cannock and drag them along as well. Obviously, Dusk Till Dawn, quite a big company. How long have you been going for now?
Officially as a company since 2009, so quite a while now.
Quite a while.
Yeah.
What made you set them up?
I've always had a fascination and passion for the paranormal since being a little girl, and my poor husband, I think we've been married about a year, and I demanded to be taken on a ghost hunt. And we trawled through the local paper, and we found a local group in Nottingham who were all meeting up this particular night at an old pub in Nottingham, the Trip to Jerusalem.
Right.
You've probably heard of that place, but
I have actually, but
so
I don't know why.
have you?
But I have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's quite a famous haunted pub in Nottingham. Really, really old. Anyway, my husband rang up the sort of group leader, if you like, and he said, "Oh yes, we're all meeting. Come along." And we went along to meet everybody, and I was just enthralled and blown away with it all, and loved every single minute of it, you know. And once the pub was shut, and it went into darkness, and it was amazing. It was magical to me.
Yeah.
And it just happened from there. And then we then went on other events, with companies. Loved it, and then we decided to form our own little group, just a little group of us that did investigations at ruins and various things. And I said, group, I'd like to take this further. I think we could join forces and become a company, and we could take members of the public on public ghost hunts, and they were all up for it, and then when push came to shove, nobody seemed to want to push it in that direction. So myself and my husband, we both decided that we would form our business and become Dusk Till Dawn Events. And in 2009, it was born.
Okay.
And that was it. Yeah. We decided to take the plunge and go for it. And never look back, really.
Because you must be one of the top sort of 3 or 4 companies now in the UK from a size perspective.
I think we are now. Yes, yeah. It's took many years to get there, but
nothing's
I think,
overnight, is it? That's the
no,
thing.
it isn't. It's taken a lot of hard work, tears,
Yeah.
and arguments. All adds to it. It's running a business, and it is hard work behind the scenes, but it's rewarding at the same time. We really do enjoy it. Yeah.
So, can you remember the first investigation then that you took members of the public on?
I can, yes, yeah. It was Halloween 2009, and we went to the Creaky Cauldron in Stratford upon Avon.
Right.
And I was absolutely terrified, as you can imagine. But it went well, and guests seemed to love it, and it just went from there, really, from strength to strength.
Ah. And where's been your favourite place to take guests? The place that's sort of quite close to your heart and you do enjoy. All right, you can have 3.
Yeah, 3. Right, okay. The Galleries of Justice in Nottingham. That's got to be my all-time favourite. I have seen an apparition down in the caves there, a full, solid blown man down in the caves, and that was in February 2012.
Yeah.
I've never seen him since, but I'll never forget it either, So that for me has got a real draw, that place, and it's fantastic anyway, even in the day to go and visit. But the areas that you get to go and see, that probably members of the public don't, underneath the very building is fascinating for me. So yeah, that's number 1, but it's Nottingham, so it's my hometown. Another place is the Spirit House in Evesham.
All right.
Another fantastic place. I have friends that own the building.
Right.
And by day it's a it's a shop that sells tarot cards. They do readings and things there, and lots of crystals, that kind of thing. But by night, totally different take on the place.
Yeah.
Very, very old, and and fantastic cellar down there, and it's got an old sort of Victorian parlour with a big séance table, and things that's happened around that table you would not believe. The table's moved with just my hands on it. One day we were around there in the day and we were doing a bit of filming there, and I just popped 2 hands on the table and the table shot forward. It's so active and so haunted. It's amazing, really good.
Okay.
I think, well, I have to, I'm biased, but the old Edwardian School, another one in Nottingham, I have to say, I think that's one of the most haunted places in Nottingham, apart from the Galleries of Justice. Incredible
that's where your offices
activity.
are, isn't it?
Our office is based there, and things that's happened in my office during the day, would blow you away. I've had, something fly through the air from one side of the room and hit me on my leg, which I saw coming at me, voices, heavy sighs, whistles that we've heard just during the day while we're sat at our computers, and taking calls from customers. But we have an old, the original headmaster's office there, and we've heard laughter, the table has moved, chairs have moved by themselves, all sorts of things in there. All sorts of things have happened in there.
So do you have access to the whole building?
We have access to, it is a business premises as well during the day, but we have access to 3 main areas, and that is the old art room, the headmaster's office, and the basement beneath the building as well, plus the corridors, which are creepy as anything, during the night. We've had doors bang on their own. While we're down in the headmaster's office, we hear dragging of chairs above us while nobody's upstairs. It's incredibly active.
And I suppose as it's your offices, you don't have to go through the palaver of booking it to go and investigate it.
Well, this is true. It's true, yeah. So we are there once a month at least, But and we've also done some fantastic séance evenings there as well, in the old headmaster's office, where we take about 8 people, and it's very intense, and we sit in the headmaster's office, which is absolutely pitch black, and it's very, very different to a public event where, there's a lot of hustle and bustle and a lot of people, but it's intense because there's 8 of us, and we sit quietly, and we do try and hold a traditional sort of Victorian séance, and it's fantastic. I love those nights, and yeah, it is. It really, really is.
I might have to come and visit you sometime, Jess.
Oh, you must do. You must. Yeah, it's an incredible building. Yeah, and it's also got connections to David Attenborough.
Oh, right.
Yeah, big time. I think his father was one of the teachers or headmasters or something along those lines. So yeah, it's got big connections to the Attenborough family. A lot of history there.
Richard was in one of my favourite films of all time.
Which one was that?
Great Escape.
Oh yes, yeah. We've even gone to the sort of lengths of putting pictures of him, in one of the rooms, and activity then has sort of increased because his picture's there, or we took coins on the table, and one day a girl was sat at the far end of the table and the coin just visibly shot across the table at her, and we'd only got our hands on the table. The table wasn't moving, and it just shot across the table. So I don't know, it's bizarre really. The things that happen there.
Yeah,
incredible.
Sounds good. So where would be your dream location that you could go?
Oh gosh, it's got to be, Alcatraz, or I don't know, something along those lines, a big old prison,
Yeah.
I think Alcatraz has got to be the one for me, definitely.
Have you ever been there?
I haven't, and I'd love to. I really would.
It's a strange place.
Oh, you've been?
I've been.
Have you?
I
Oh
have,
my
yeah.
gosh.
I haven't investigated it, but
No.
I've been as a sort of a visitor during the day.
Daytime.
About 15, 16 years ago now.
Wow.
I've talked to a few people who've been there about it, and I didn't find it that sort of... Maybe it's different after dark, but I found it quite peaceful in a weird way.
Oh, did you? Right.
Yeah, I didn't... And I got put into one of those solitary cells and got the door
Did
shut.
you?
And, yeah, and I actually found it... I felt quite sort of at ease. I didn't feel threatened or... The weirdest thing I had happened there, and anyone who listens to my show will have heard this story before, so if you've heard this story before, please switch off for the next 10 seconds. But I was in the recreation area outside where those stone steps that are up the side, and I was actually sitting there, sort of sitting with my legs crossed, balancing my chin on my sort of the fist of my hand, if that makes sense. And I was actually looking out to the bay, to San Francisco, just thinking, this is really peaceful, and this isn't really punishment. Then thinking, well, actually, I suppose it is, because your family are over there and you can't get to them, and not knowing that my friend who I was there with had taken a photo of me sitting like this.
Yeah.
When we went to get the photos developed, I saw this one of me, and I was like, I don't remember you taking that. And he went, yeah, you just look so deep in thought. I took a photo.
Yeah.
We were like, we've seen that pose before, and we flicked through the guidebook, and there was a picture of Al Capone. Oh, exactly the same place.
No.
Exactly the same pose.
Oh my God.
So,
how odd.
Yeah, it was a bit strange. It was a bit strange.
Yeah.
But no, I'd love to investigate that place. But I do wonder, maybe it changes after dark. It might be a bit more unruly after dark.
Yeah. Did it have a look about it that would, did it look creepy or?
No.
Did it not?
It's massive.
Right.
I think the creepy bit at Alcatraz would be the cave tunnels from the original fort, from the 1700s fort that's underneath.
Right.
You can't get to those.
That's a shame.
Those would be the interesting ones to investigate. Well, as a general tourist, you can't. Whether you can, if you get special permission, I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe so.
But when I was chatting to Bill Taboni of the Australian Paranormal Society about this, he's the same as me. He'd love to go and investigate, because he agrees that's where he thinks a lot of the activity comes from. It's not the prisoners who were in the main prison from the sort of 1900s.
No.
It's the stuff that went on underneath.
I can imagine that, yeah.
But no, I didn't find it... maybe it is different when there's nobody there. Maybe it's different after dark. Maybe I mean... It was June that I was there. Say it was quite pleasant,
nice and light, and yeah.
I should think if there's a storm blowing in the bay, it would be quite different kind of energy. But I just found it quite relaxing, if I'm completely honest.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh God. I'll have to think of somewhere else.
But it might not be to other people. That's the weird thing.
No. Yeah.
But this photo, it did. I mean, my friend who I was with, he was a maths PhD, so he's looking at it going, it's just coincidence, it's a bit spooky coincidence, it's got to be coincidence.
It is a spooky coincidence, I've got to say, yeah.
But maybe that's why I felt relaxed. Maybe that's why I felt relaxed, because, I had Al Capone telling me where to go. I don't know.
Brilliant.
But it's a very interesting place. It's very sort of, but it's like a lot of the history in America. It's quite modern history. And the jail I loved visiting, and you can't investigate this, they won't let you, is Kilmainham in Ireland. Kilmainham Jail in Dublin.
I've never heard of that.
That's one that I would pay to investigate, but they won't let anyone in to do it.
Have you been to visit there, Penny?
A couple of times, yeah.
Have you? Yeah.
It's where they imprisoned the Easter Uprising political prisoners in 1916.
Oh, right.
And so a lot of them were shot in the courtyard.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
That's got my show was on that one sort of back in April, but that's got a lot of interesting. But it's a beautiful prison inside. The Victorian one is absolutely stunning. And when I went to visit there, one of the visits, I've been there twice, but I think it was the second one I went on. My mum was with me in Dublin for the weekend, and she actually worked at a prison as a Samaritan. And she walked in and she went, "This is the same format as the other prisons I've been in that are built in this era. They were all identical."
All the same.
But no, Alcatraz would be a good one to investigate. It's it wouldn't be interesting to see if the energy changed.
I'm sure it would. Yeah. Just me and you in there. Can you imagine?
Oh, we'd have fun.
Night time.
We'd have fun, Jess. We'd have fun. I'll take you up on that. When are we going to San Francisco, love?
Oh, this year? Next year?
Yeah, I'll meet you at Heathrow.
Yeah, you're on.
Right. Well, we're going to take a 20-second break now, and when we come back, we're going to start talking about the 4 Crosses coaching in Cannock. Stay with us.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with it here. Hello? Is anybody there?
Yes, Harry, we're still here. We're still chatting. I'm still chatting with Jessica of Dusk Till Dawn events, and we've just been talking about places we'd like to go, and I think I've upset her because I've been to Alcatraz.
You destroyed my
I'm sorry.
my place.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but the Al Capone thing, that must have made you think, oh, because that was a weird experience. That was a weird experience.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been to places I'd like to go to. But the Four Crosses in Cannock.
Yes,
now, the story I've told, the sort of history bit I told before you came on was about the, it was Prince Henry, the brother of King George III, his mistress, or well, I don't know if she was married and he wasn't, so whether she'd be his mistress or he'd be, I'm not sure what it would be.
Yeah.
But they stayed there when they were on the run from her husband. So we were talking about that, and I'm sure that place has seen quite a lot of scandal and
I'm sure
people getting together who probably shouldn't be. What's it like as a place when you go in?
I visited in the day, and it was very, very atmospheric in the day. There is a lovely couple that live there. They're the new owners because, of course, it was taken over. It was sold, so they bought the property. Yeah. And it's got a homely feel. Part of it has got a homely feel, and they took us around upstairs, lovely sort of sleeping areas, attic area, etc. But it's also got another sort of element to it, which is very, very atmospheric, and the cellar in particular is quite amazing. That's just off their living room, if you like, and it's quite daunting down there, I have to say. So it's got sort of many, many different elements to the place, sort of different levels as well. Fascinating place, and of course when the lights go out it's completely different as well. And we've had some fantastic nights there as well, actually.
So is it still a functioning pub?
No, it's not. No. I think the couple that bought the building, they've done a lot of refurb, a lot of modernisation and decoration to the building as well. A lot of hard work that they've put in there. And I think in the future they're going to be, there was talk of hosting weddings, that kind of thing there as well. It would be a lovely place to have a wedding, I'm sure. But it's also great to do some ghost hunting.
So has it still got the original bar in and those kind of features?
Just from memory, I don't think it had the bar anymore when I went, but I could be completely wrong because it was a while ago that I visited, I have to say. So that may not have been there, but don't quote me on that. But the team go, we're there an awful lot. And lots of dates were there, next year. So they always report back to me, I've had a brilliant night there, and the guests have thoroughly enjoyed it. So, but it's got the big old fireplace there, a huge fireplace. And it looks the part, it really, really does look the part, and you can see what it was, nothing's been taken away. It's still got all the original features to the place.
Like the panelling and those kind of things that would have been in there.
It's a lot of timber, a lot of timber in the place, particularly up in the attic area, the old stairwells, bedrooms and all that. But it's quite a place, actually.
Okay, so you mentioned the cellar. The cellar has a bit of a vibe to it.
It does, yes.
What's happened down in the cellar? Because know us ghost hunters, we always love a good cellar.
There's got to be a cellar.
There's got to be a good cellar.
Now, down there when I was there was a massive table, and the team have reported back to me that table has actually moved. It's lifted. It's dropped, it's visibly, it's shook, and it's a big old heavy table. So for that to move is quite something, actually. I can't really say that a group of people with their hands on that table would be able to lift that table. but it has moved down there.
Right.
They've had some amazing lights, strange lights down there. I'm not talking orbs, I'm talking big lights that's lit up the cellar.
Right.
And there's also been reports of energy. People could see sort of energy moving around the table, if that makes sense.
Right.
And with the table going as well, and they've had noises and bangs down there as well, and growls, which I always love. I love a good old growl. Yeah, yeah,
Is
really
this stuff
deep
that's
growls.
is this stuff that's been picked up on EVP, or is this stuff they've heard with their own ears?
This is what they've heard, and this is the report that's come back to me. And we always put our report up on Facebook after an event, along with a picture of the guests. But there's also a report of what's happened on the night, and in particular this one night, a big old loud growl was heard down there. So I love it when that happens. I don't know why energies do that sometimes, just to make themselves heard or make people jump. I don't know, but a big old loud growl was heard, so that's quite spooky.
And what kind of debunking do your team do when they hear things like this? Will they go off and check there isn't an animal trap down there and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, we'll turn a torch on, we'll all look around, and we'll always, it's difficult. We're on a public event, and, you've got to trust the people that you're with, but we'll say to the group, did anybody make that noise? Was it a tummy?
Yeah.
Let's go through all the usual questions. And you can normally tell as a group, that they're visibly shook when they hear a growl, so that's what we mainly do. It's hard on a public event, but I think when you hear a growl that's come from a, shall we say, a spirit source. You just visibly know, don't you? But there's always that side, because you're working with members of the public, people that you don't know. There is that side that it could be one of the group, but I always say to people, there's no point that, we never ever fake anything, and what's the point of anybody coming to fake on an event? They've paid money to come, and that's not what we're about. We want the truth, and that's what any of us want, isn't it? We want to find out if there is life after death, and
the stomach thing you said that was interesting. I did an interview with some American contacts of mine, Emily from Three Girls in the Dark. She said the one piece of advice she'd give to people is don't eat something like Taco Bell before you do an investigation, because the grumbling in your stomach as your body's trying to digest the beans probably does sound like the voice of Satan trying to communicate. So the stomach thing, as we joke, I have been on invest when people's stomachs have made a funny noise and they've had to say, oh, sorry, that's me.
Sorry, it's me. Yeah. And it's always on cue. Can you make a noise for us? Always. It's funny.
So does the cellar have a nasty feel to it, or is it just typical cellar?
It's ominous, let's say that.
Right.
I'm a great believer that we talk about negative energies and good energies, if you like, but I always think, if we're sort of goodish on this side or a little bit grouchy on the other, that's what we're going to be like on the other side. We're not going to change. That's my belief anyway. So when we say negative, I always sort of think of maybe a grouchy person, nothing that's going to harm us or anything like that, but there's something, somebody
Victor Meldrew.
Yeah, they're not that enthralled that we're there, But just because an energy growls, it doesn't mean to say that it's negative. It could be just, I'm here and you'll hear me. What else have I got to do? You have to use enough time. So here it is. I'm give you a noise. It just happens to be a growl, and it's a bit freaky, but it's great.
But you do find the cellar's got that kind of more of that kind of feel about it.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, I do have to say. Yeah.
Okay. What about the bedrooms? The bedroom area.
The bedrooms. The bedrooms are. It's an old attic up there as well. During the day, it's not got a vibe. Well, it's got a vibe, but it's not sort of sinister or scary or anything. But when the lights are off, I can imagine it's quite creepy up there.
Mm-hmm.
But there was talk of sleepovers there as well. That was on the cards, and so that may be something that we may do and use the bedrooms upstairs for sleepovers.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously the couple live there, and they live up in the bed. They stay in the bedrooms upstairs, so can't be all that bad.
And have they ever reported anything to you?
No. Apart from funnily enough, I think it's either the ladies' toilets. Yeah, I think it's the ladies' toilets. There's activity around the loos, funnily enough, and they've had latches lifting. The doors on the toilet, they've heard those going, and also on interior doors. Mm-hmm. They've heard them opening in the middle of the night and creaking open, So, yeah, I think that's what they told me when I went to visit more than anything.
There is definitely something about the ladies' loos, because one of the accounts I found, I think I mentioned it to you, was she was opening the pub up when it was still a pub, sort of early 2000s, and she found 2 flowers placed on one of the women's toilet seats, crossed over. And she thought somebody, a punter, had left them there the night before, so she took them away. When she came back to carry on opening up, there was a very heavy candlestick had been placed in front of the door to the ladies' toilet, and she knew she was on her own in the pub. There was nobody else there.
Yeah.
So there's obviously something about those ladies' loos that... I
think there is, yeah. Whether we investigate in there, I'm not too sure. We do most of the building, but I think we should start investigating those loos. I know it sounds bizarre, but if things have been happening in there, then it's definitely the place to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
it does sound like you need to send a little crew in there just to see what. Because there does seem to be an awful lot of stories about toilets in places. I don't know why.
Knows.
When you watch some like Ghost Adventures episodes, the amount of stuff they have that have happened in bathroom-esque areas.
Really?
Yeah,
I've not seen that.
When I did Fort Horsted recently, they said that the ladies' loos is meant to be one of the most haunted parts of the building. And we went in there, we tried to but we couldn't turn the lights off, so it was quite hard to sort of... Yeah. And there was a buzz from the lights constantly, so it was quite hard to... Yeah. And nothing actually happened, but people whose offices are in the fort have said, the ladies' loos is notorious. I just wonder why. I mean, I know at the fort it wasn't originally a toilet, this bit. It was one of the magazines for the storage, so that it might just be that's why. But places where it just makes you wonder what maybe those loos were before they became...
It does actually.
Loos.
Yeah. Same as that. Although it's not the toilet, but it was the girls' cloakroom. My office at the old Edwardian school. That was the girls' sort of entrance by my office door, and the boys were the other side. And my office was the girls, where they hung their coats and bags. And there's a fantastic picture. You can find it on the internet somewhere of the kids dressed in Edwardian. The sort of lads in the long sort of shorts and the boots, and girls in the long white pinafores, and they stood outside my office, and I adore that picture. And it's to think that they went in that door where I go in every day is something else,
Oh, I love stuff like that. I do love seeing stuff like that when you get the superimposed. And they do like the World War II scenes, and then they superimpose it and World War One over what it looks like now.
Yes,
the sort of thing. I mean, you get the two pictures sort of mingling into each other, and you can actually stand there and think, well, this is where this bomb hit, or there was a building here, and that kind of thing. I find it quite sort of mind-blowing, if I'm completely honest.
So do I. Yeah, and it actually happened. These people were there, which is it's amazing, really.
Nice, I love that. Well, then again, I'm a history nerd, so I am going to love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, of course,
So we've talked about the cellar, we've talked about the bedroom area. What other areas do your group tend to investigate at the Four Crosses?
There's a main sort of living area around the fire. There's a big old fireplace in there, and I think we've had activity around that fireplace. I think a child has actually been seen around the fireplace. So it's on many levels. So we have somebody upstairs in the attic area, and we have somebody downstairs in the sort of living area. So we do sort of three main areas, if you like, and then obviously we take people down into the cellar. So yeah, I mean, it's not a massive location, so we don't take heaps of people in there.
Is it 2-3 floors?
Yeah, it's about 3 floors.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, noise sort of travels, so we like to keep the groups quite small, and then we take people down into the cellar as well. So yeah, we cover the whole of the house. Yeah. But I think we really should investigate those loos. I think that's next on the cards.
I think we should. So do the family who live there move out then when there's an investigation?
Yes, yeah, I think they go out for the night or go and stay somewhere. So yes, yeah, they leave us to it, which is really good of them, and quite trusting of us.
Because the pub is one of the places that one of the infamous black-eyed children is meant to be seen. One of the spirits that's meant to be there. And some of the research I was doing is that they think it was linked. They think this particular spirit was linked to a murder in the 1960s in the area of 3 young girls. And all of a sudden the sightings of this girl stopped when the murderer was caught.
Right.
But then for some reason they started up again.
Yeah. Well, maybe, the new people, they've taken over the property. There's been lots of renovation in the property, and as you know, there's always reports that when people start changing things around in a location, in a building, that's when things can increase again and activity can start up again, and you never know. The lady that lives in the property, maybe she's a source, maybe, or the couple draw energies to them. You just don't know, do you? It's an odd thing, how activity can just cease and then it can start up again just out of the blue, but that's how it is, isn't it?
But you're saying a little girl's been seen around the fireplace?
Yes, yeah. I'm just looking at the report from the team. I'm just having a look at this. I think when we were doing a Ouija board, actually, and the name that was spelt out on the Ouija board was Bib, B-I-B. Right. And this is the name that this child was giving. And then she was seen over by the fireplace, but then she sort of changed, and she changed into an adult figure. So goodness knows what was happening there. It was quite visible. She was seen as a child, but then she changed, which is bizarre.
That is bizarre.
Yeah, it's a bit odd. I think, there's supposed to be quite a few energies inside the building,
Yeah. Because another one is a woman by the name of Emily is meant to be.
Yes, yeah, a young girl, and I think our team have actually heard and have heard a cry,
Right.
During an investigation. I don't think anybody recorded it at the time. It always happens when you're least expecting it, these
Doesn't
things.
It always, yeah.
Yeah, but a sort of pitiful cry, if you like, was heard, and she's also been picked up on the Ouija board, and the name Emily as well. So that's quite interesting.
Have they had any other contact with her, like why she's upset, what happened?
I think she once affected one of our guests. I think she started to cry, that emotion. You see that a lot,
Yeah.
Some guests will suddenly burst into tears, and they did think it was associated with Emily. She was on the board at the time, and the guest started to just burst into tears, and she couldn't stop, which is, she was really sobbing, which is really weird. I find when that happens, that's quite fascinating. It happens quite a lot, actually.
And do any of these guests it happened to have had any experience of it before? No, they're not empaths themselves?
No, majority, no. Yeah. At the old age, off the Four Crosses, and back to the old Edwardian school again, I had, and we spoke about trance earlier now. I'm not a big fan of trance, I have to say, and But this lady, I mean, she was in her 70s and quiet as a mouse, you know, nothing ego-driven about this lady at all.
Yeah.
She was holding my hand. I suddenly sort of felt her pulling away from me. And I thought something's not right. I could hear a bit of a scuffle to the left of me, and I turned my torch on. She was sort of contorted and pulling away from me. And I said, I shone my torch on her face, actually. And I said, everything okay? And she never answered me. So at that point, I always take a guest out. I will remove them from the energy. I take them completely away from them. So I prized her hand, not prize, but that's the wrong word, but sort of gently removed her hand from the lady that she was holding, because she'd got her arm in a strange position, you know, she was hurting her. And so I took her out and I left the guests with the other host, and we went a walk down the corridor. And as we're walking down the corridor, she was, you know, like a little girl. Started to do this little laugh, and she was even sucking her thumb. It was bizarre. And I said, and we were just talking and walking. I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "I'm scared." And I said, "Oh, you nothing to be scared of. Come with me." And we went out into the foyer. And at that point, I turned the light on, and she was still in this sort of, you know, character, if you like. And then she just looked at me. She said, "What have I done?" I said, "Oh, no, everything's fine." I just explained. She said, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed." I said, "Please don't be embarrassed. You know, it does happen." She said, "I can never, ever come on another ghost hunt. This has happened to me before." And, you know, I genuinely believed her, that something was sort of overshadowing her, if you like, you know. I'm not going to say possessed, because I don't believe in possession, but I think something came so close, it did affect her, you know, and that was interesting. It's the quietest lady, you know, not a showman or anything like that.
Yeah.
And but she was absolutely fine after, and she continued with the night, and everything, you know, was fine. You know, we do look after people in our events, but and she wasn't hurt. It was just, she, you know, this little
Scared
girl
her.
had obviously it scared her, and she was embarrassed, you know.
Yeah.
But I found it fascinating at the same time, you know. But it's all good fun.
Well, I think it is when you're keeping an eye on things. You know, this is what worries me, when people who don't know what they're doing go off and try and communicate, and they, you know, 99% of the time it goes without a hitch. But if you don't know how to break a connection, or if you don't know, I mean, I tend to tell friends, if they're on one with me and I start shaking uncontrollably, move me. Because that means something's latching on, and I shake. I can't make myself do it otherwise. I shake like crazy, and I can't make myself do it like on purpose. This kind of shaking, and I said, if you see me doing that, get me out of that room. Just pull me out of the room. But I've kind of, as I've got older, I've learnt to control it a bit more and sort of push it away before it gets to that stage. But no, I know if somebody's trying to sort of grab onto me, because I start shaking. I start really shaking. But it just, you know, if you didn't know what you're dealing with.
That's it. It's interesting, isn't it, as well, how energies, I don't know, like to make you aware that they are there, you know, and they affect people in ways. And I mean, not to hurt you, but just to make you aware. I'm here, you know, it's what you're asking for. Yeah. And, you know, please feel me, please sense me, you know, and acknowledge me, if you like. That's the best way to describe it. But well,
it's kind of what I sort of say to people, is when you don't need to be scared when somebody's pulled your hair or tugged your sleeve.
No.
You know, it makes you jump. It makes you jump, but you don't need to be scared, because it's no different to a small child who can't speak yet. How are they going to get your attention? They're going to tug on your leg, or they're going to tug on your hair, or tap you on the shoulder. That's all the spirit's doing. It's not doing it to make. It's not going to do it to sort of drag you through the portal to hell or something.
Well, no, I've not seen that yet, but I'd like to see that.
Yeah, that would be quite, as long as I'm on the right side of it.
Of course.
Yeah. So what about this round-head soldier that's been reported at the pub?
Yeah, there has been talk again on the Ouija board that a round-head soldier has been reported coming through on the Ouija board. I wasn't there at the time, so I don't know how correct that is, but that's been reported back to me as well. Yeah, it's been.
See, the interesting thing is that I found 3 or 4 different reports of things that said different companies on different sort of research that said about a roundhead soldier. So unless it would sort of marry up with that. Wonderful. So when's your next when's your next excursion to the Four Crosses?
Well, we're there. Well, it looks like we're there every month next year, actually. And,
all right.
Yeah, it's fast selling out. We've sold out the 13th Jan, 23rd of Feb. April and May are both sold out, and it looks like we've got about 6 places left for March.
Right.
Friday the 13th, of course, the most superstitious night of the year. We're there again.
That's July.
Is that July? Yeah. And then Saturday the 15th, and then into October, of course. But yeah, it's been very, very popular, this place. So
So if anyone wants to book on, what do they need? Where do they need to go? How do they contact you?
Yeah, well, they can visit our website, which is www.dusktildawnevents.co.uk. They can call our office. They can book online. Lots of ghost hunts to have a look at and take your pick from. We do ghost walks as well. So, there's lots to see.
And you've got a Facebook page they can head over. They can head over and like.
Yeah, the old Facebook page, the official Dusk Till Dawn Events Facebook page as well. Yeah, so they can find us on there. Leave us a message if they want to.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jess. I really do appreciate
You're welcome.
it. I know we had some concerns. I know we had some concerns about whether Skype was going to play ball for us, but it's been pretty okay as far as I can tell.
It has. I'm amazed. I really am.
The gods of Skype have been nice to me today.
They've been kind. They
have. Well, as we said, if you want to go and check out Dusk Till Dawn events, do head over to their Facebook page, their website. Loads of information on there, and you can drop them a message, and Jess and her team will get straight back to you. But thank you ever so much for listening to Haunted Histories on Parasearch Radio tonight. It's much appreciated. Please feel free to feedback with anything that you'd like us to cover. And don't forget to listen to all the other Parasearch shows on every night of the week on Spreaker, and also stored on YouTube for your ease of listening. But all that leaves me to say is have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.